We'll have in a moment a man on this stage who has been working tirelessly to break the stranglehold of addiction for firefighters and others. Dan is a dear friend of me and my family. Dan is a dear friend of thousands. Dan has been helping firefighters with complex issues, mental health, addiction, issues that others for far too long have ignored, shunned, and dismissed. Dan didn't. And while he battled those demons with us and for us, he was the epitome of what a Chicago firefighter should be: compassionate, strong, caring, and wise. He built tools and groups. He founded centers, foundations, to help firefighters regain control of their lives, to save their careers, always putting himself third, behind his beloved family and the fire service. Please allow me to summarize Dan's career so far. Chief Dan DeGryse started with the Chicago Fire Department in 1989. He is currently Battalion 1, which covers the downtown Chicago area. He has received several awards during his career, including the Illinois Firefighter of the Year. While working for Chicago Fire, Dan also worked at a private mental hospital, providing therapy in areas of addiction, mental health, issues of behavior management. Dan was the coordinator of the Chicago Local 2's Employee Assistance Program for 14 years. He started the Chicago Firefighters Peer Support Program called Gatekeepers. He has been a member of the IAF EAP Labor Committee since 2002. In 2014, Dan created the Florian Program, along with the wonderful folks from the Rosecrans Health Network, who have been the strongest supporters of the fire service and the military. He serves as the director of the Florian Program for the Rosecrans Foundation. The Florian Program provides inpatient treatment to all first responders and military personnel dealing with substance abuse and co-occurring issues. Dan has a Bachelor of Science in Fire Science Management from the University of Illinois and a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Wabash College. Dan is a certified assistance professional, an alcohol drug abuse counselor, and a certified labor assistance professional. He holds advanced training in critical incident stress management and suicide prevention. Dan is an outstanding husband, father, and son, an amazing friend, mentor, and confidant, a wonderful teacher, and as you will see in just a few seconds, an incredibly inspirational speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, the FDIC 2018 keynote speaker, Chief Dan DeGryse.
Okay, so stand on your feet, please. Do me a favor. I'm going to need your help. I know you've been sitting for a while. I'm going to need Bobby's help, too. The next 20 minutes is going to be interesting. Look to the person to your left. Look to the person to your right. Pick somebody and do me a favor. I'm going to need you to help me through this period, as Bobby has helped me in the past, as well as I've helped him. Now do me a favor, look at the person next to you. Don't be looking at the screen, look at the person next to you. Give them a hug. Let's hear it for Bobby Halton. July 11th, 2016 was a day that time stopped for me. My heart sank, and I began to feel numb all over my body. I was at O'Hare Airport, minutes away from boarding a plane to provide training to a fire department that had recently experienced the tragedy of a firefighter suicide. My wife called me and said, "Dan, it's about your dad." I can remember thinking to myself as my wife continued to talk, remain calm, and don't fall apart in front of everyone here at the airport. I remember asking, is everything all right? She said, I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to tell you. This created some tension that began to spread throughout my body, and I felt frozen in place, unaware of my surroundings. My wife proceeded to tell me that my father left us a voicemail saying, please take care of your mother. I can't take the pain anymore. She added she called him immediately, but neither he nor my mom answered. My father is a veteran of the Marine Corps and retired sergeant from the Chicago Police Department following a 32-year career. Throughout his career, he battled alcoholism and bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is a chronic condition that brings unusual shifts in one's mood, energy, and activity level. And recently had been struggling with his latest bout of severe depression, all the while maintaining his sobriety. I have to say that knowing his life experiences, including growing up poor in Chicago to an abusive alcoholic father, as well as his personal struggles, sometimes culminating into the suicidal thoughts and actions, that for a moment, my feelings were mixed with fear, sadness, and a strange sense of relief for him that the pain he was again experiencing might be over. That day ended with reaching my father, securing his 2 handguns, and admitting him into a treatment center. And while I've intervened with my father in the past due to previous suicidal thoughts, I had to know something. I had to know how far he got to carrying out his plan and what prevented him from completing suicide so I could better understand his thought process and be able to intervene in the future. I asked him and he replied, I had the loaded gun to my head. When I asked him why he didn't pull the trigger, he replied, because I'm a coward. Well, I know this is not true, and I'm grateful he did not complete suicide. What's important to know in cases like this is what the individual believes. Well, I hope I have your attention. I also truly hope you have never had to ask anyone close to those questions, because that would mean you have felt like I did, frozen and scared. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 91st Fire Department Instructors Conference. I am truly humbled and feel very privileged to be standing before you with this opportunity that Bobby Halton has offered me to address behavioral health and mental wellness with each of you. I want to thank Bobby for shining a bright light on the topic of behavioral health and mental wellness within the fire service. And while we are here as firefighters and paramedics of all ranks from departments around the world, please remember, we are also sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, moms and dads, and husbands and wives. Before I go any further, I want to take a moment to acknowledge those men and women, some who are amongst us today, that we have lost that are members specifically from the Houston, Orlando, Las Vegas, Cal Fire, Parkland, Paris, France, Brussels, Belgium, and now Nashville and Toronto fire departments, along with any other departments who have been involved with fighting a wildland fire, an active shooter event, either as a firefighter or victim, or experienced the tragedy of a natural disaster as a citizen or first responder. If you're here today, I ask you to please stand up. Please stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for these firefighters and EMS personnel in this room, as well as those not. Let's hear it for them who preserve life and property while setting their own safety aside. Not only do we acknowledge you, but we respect the honor and honor the work you did and will continue to do. Only you know what it took to get through those events then and now. I hope you as individuals, as departments, and as communities are continuing to heal, rebuild, and recover from those events. Now, one more thing. Do me a favor. Bring out your cell phones. I know they told you to turn them off. Bring out your cell phones and take out and take a picture of this room, tweet, Periscope, Instagram, or go Facebook Live, please, and tell everyone we are talking about mental health at FDIC. Send a message that this is okay to talk about at home, at work, and at FDIC. It's time for straight talk. I'd like to begin by considering the history of the fire service and reflecting on some of our progress. We only have to look back a little bit more than a half century ago when there was limited formal firefighter training, no flame retardant clothes, and fire coats that provided partial protection. Thankfully, after decades of education, training, and advancements, we have enjoyed considerable growth in the field of firefighting due to the courage of many before us who took initiative to suggest and advance our fireground tactics, our structural firefighting gear, and the equipment we use to change our profession for the better. Equally, how has behavioral and mental health awareness and education progressed in the fire service? In discussions with Bobby Halton, he says, "We are at the beginning of the beginning." So where do we go from here? Let's start with an understanding of the term mental health. Mental health, as defined by Merriam-Webster, is the condition of being sound mentally and emotionally that is characterized by the absence of mental illness and by adequate adjustment, especially as reflected in feeling comfortable about oneself, positive feelings about others, and the ability to meet the demands of daily life. We have chosen a career that, similar to military and police, will change us, will affect a person who entered the academy excited, anxious, proud, and willing to do our job. During our careers, we will repeatedly witness and experience trauma in ways that everyday citizens do not. A statement by Jeffrey Denning, a decorated war hero who authored the book Warrior SOS, says it best: whether there are subtle changes or drastic ones, no warrior views life the same after engaging in the things of battle. Historically, our training, unfortunately, has not encompassed an understanding of how to process the disturbing sights of victims, the observers and their reactions, or more importantly, our reactions to such experiences. Beyond the academy, our training as firefighters and paramedics is an ongoing occurrence with each run we go on. Our mission is to protect life and property. That mission, as we are learning, can come with a price on our mental well-being that affects all aspects of our lives. Everyone in this room can close their eyes at any moment and picture a particular scenario they experienced in their careers and the feelings they have attached to it. In my humble opinion, we need to modify the thoughts and perceptions into being the tough, rugged, strong, and resolute individuals and what that means. We hear presentations about leadership. Why are we on the job? Are you that one that represents the best in the fire service? I do not believe we can completely and successfully approach these topics until we address a basic one: our mental health. I want each of you to be part of a movement that could direct us towards this goal: an improved fire service as a whole, and healthier individuals that make up the fire service. I want you to use your personalities, experiences, and characteristics in a way that promotes well-being for all of us. I would like you to consider the following: modeling behaviors useful to our success, demonstrating vulnerability and encourage others to do the same, and mentoring those around you as you see opportunity. On any given day, hundreds of thousands of firefighters and paramedics go to work, and even more of us are either at home or returning home. Think about what goes on with us while we are transitioning back home, and some of us back home to our families. Consider the conscious and subconscious processes of reintegrating into our lives outside the fire service. while we probably still internally processing and recovering from the events of the previous day, the past week, or possibly years. We are learning that we are physically, mentally, and emotionally affected by our experiences, and we need to acknowledge and take direction on how to address this. Going back to the three concepts I mentioned, modeling, vulnerability, and mentoring, the first one, modeling, is defined as a form of learning where individuals ascertain how to act or perform by observing another individual. Every day across our nation and around the world, we have men and women of the fire service who show up each morning to fulfill their firefighting and EMT duties as seen by wearing their proper uniform, checking inventory, cleaning their tools, performing drills, and responding to emergency calls. As I see it, aside from making sure this is done each day, it is just as important to gauge the fitness for duty of every man and woman standing beside us each day. The question is, do we? As a supervisor, do you take the time in your morning duties to engage your coworkers, your company, or your battalion and ask them how they are doing? Ask yourself, when is the last time you asked a coworker, family member, or a friend how they were doing? Really meant it and had the time available if they decided to share with you? It's a simple question, but I bet that most of you, just like me, use this saying as a greeting rather than as a question. I remember one morning when I entered the firehouse kitchen to get a cup of coffee to start the day. One member of the previous shift was up, and I simply said, "Good morning. How are you doing?" As I just mentioned, I didn't mean anything more by this than a greeting. This person I know is usually not very social with other members in the house and is unfortunately generally avoided. Sadly, and maybe contributing to that, he had a life-altering event about a year earlier that no one should experience. He lost his son, who was only 4 months old. After chatting for 2 or 3 minutes, I turned to go about my business, and the firefighter said, "Hey, Chief, thanks." I turned to him in an oblivious manner and said, "Thanks for what?" He said, "Thanks for talking." At first, I felt ashamed, but then grateful. Because in that moment, it reinforced the notion that a small conversation initiated by the words, "How are you doing?" transformed a simple greeting into a meaningful encounter. Since then, I've made an extra effort to be more intentional with my greetings, not only for me, but with the additional hope that others will see the benefits and model the same to others. Everyone in the fire service is responsible for the direction we are heading. This includes the candidate to the fire chief. Regarding both our physical and mental health, in order for this approach to become a standard, I ask each of you to model and walk the walk we are discussing today. Let's not blame the ways of those in the past or suggest it as the culture is the issue. Going forward, let's heed the advice of men like Battalion Chief Frank Ritchie, a former FDIC keynoter, when he addressed the crowd saying, "The culture of the fire service is wrongly blamed for many of its problems." The culture myth is just a crutch for failed leadership and lack of accountability. So, let's lead by example and model the behaviors we want to see in our coworkers. And when you think of training and leaders in the fire service that you look to for inspiration, or who are modeling in a way that you or your department need to follow, what organizations and individuals come to mind? Is it FDIC, the IFF, or how about the Fools organization? And is it Bobby Halton, your fire department chief, or a particular officer? How about you? When you think about mental wellness and behavioral health, whose names do you think of? Regardless of your answer, I am asking all of you to accept the task of being that person to take us from here. The second behavior I believe we need to model, and is probably the most important of the three, is vulnerability. Vulnerability is not something that is comfortable to talk about, or in my opinion, taught in the fire service. Vulnerability is defined as being susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. Who wants this? Our training in the fire service teaches how not to be vulnerable or put ourselves or our team at an unreasonable risk. So, for our job performance, it makes sense that we would avoid this. Regarding our mental wellness, I believe differently. I believe we should make an effort to be emotionally vulnerable, open to discussing and processing with our peers and families on a regular basis what we encounter as firefighters and paramedics so they can better understand who we are. I believe for us to truly be confident and successful when responding to an incident, we need to be able and willing to return to the firehouse and, if needed, exercise a sense of vulnerability by sharing the thoughts and feelings we have regarding our experiences so we can know we are not alone. And limit our emotions from building up and letting them out in an unhealthy way. Think back to the first day entering the fire academy. If you were like me, you had thoughts wondering if you measured up and had what it takes. Would you have even considered expressing those thoughts to any of your instructors or peers at that time? Probably not. So if you were like me, you denied those thoughts and pushed on. Then once on the job, you experienced situations and critical events that you again suppressed and pressed on. These critical events that we encounter simply do not go away after we leave the scene. We are accustomed to masking our feelings and emotions and suppressing our realities to protect ourselves and our families. But before you know it, we've created a mask, a superhero facade, and a cycle of blocking out emotions and feelings. We need an outlet for that aftermath so those thoughts and emotions we experience are not misdirected. I urge you, as I have, to practice being vulnerable. It sounds simple, but it's not. Share it. Share your stories, your fears, your guilt, your shame. It's human to feel. But you don't have to do it alone. My lesson on the importance of vulnerability was a life-changing one. I have been married for 23 years, and while I would like to say that the years have all been happy ones, the reality is we've had our share of struggles. While it is difficult to share, there was a period in our relationship where my wife, despite her love for me, probably didn't like me very much and didn't look forward to me coming home after my day at the firehouse. I would venture to say that things were at a point that she probably would have left me if it wasn't for our children. You see, there were unfortunately many days I would come home, and although it was not my intent, I was distant and abrasive. My 4 children, who managed without me for 24 hours, would look forward to having their dad come home to play, and my wife looked forward to spending time with me. However, when this firefighter left work and returned home, Dad and husband Dan did not return. He didn't walk through the door. It was still the firefighter and peer counselor who came home. It wasn't Happy Dan or Funny Dan or the playful father who walked through the door. It was Tired Dan, Distracted Dan, or the father who had too many things on his mind than to engage his 4 children or spend time with his wife. What happened? I looked the same, but I didn't feel the same, and I certainly didn't act the same. My head was filled with thoughts from experiences on a job, from the daily crises I handled through my counseling position. I was changing, but I couldn't see it, despite my wife telling me I was. This went on for years until we saw a marriage counselor. Our openness and our ability to share took courage, and it saved our marriage, me, and my relationship with my children. It has been a slow, steady climb, but I can honestly say that while she always loved Dan, the guy she married, she didn't always like him. I'm happy and proud to say I think she does now. Isn't that right, honey? Whether or not you can relate to my story, my point is, it is important to share and model to others that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that this can open avenues of communication you might not have achieved otherwise. This brings me to the third idea I want to discuss: mentoring. Mentoring is a relationship in which a more experienced or more knowledgeable person helps to guide a less experienced or less knowledgeable person. Most of us are familiar with the fictional stories of Obi-Wan Kenobi, who mentored Luke Skywalker, helping him in the ways of the Force and becoming a Jedi Master. Or Mr. Miyagi, who mentored Daniel's son in The Karate Kid. Or historically, the Greek philosopher Socrates, who mentored his student Plato, who then went on to mentor Aristotle. My mentor was a senior man in the firehouse when I was a candidate. He was a veteran of the job who never told me to get some time on a job. He was a man who expected me and the rest of the company to do their job and no more. He would speak calmly whether he was in the kitchen or on the fire ground. He was the guy. He was the firehouse treasurer, the driver of the truck, the roof man, the barn boss, and a firefighter who everyone else aspired to be like. And if you wanted to learn something, he was willing to teach. All you had to do was ask. So when you think of a mentor, who comes to mind and why? Is it an officer, a chief, or the senior man in your firehouse who showed you how to identify the best spot to place your rig at an incident? What about an educator or an instructor who you took a class from that taught you leadership skills or how to be a good officer? Possibly a coach, tutor, or trainer who expected and got more from you when you thought you couldn't give any more. A mentor, as you see, can be anyone. So when you return home and are back at work, the next time you are drilling with your coworkers, think about leading part of the drill and then encourage another member of your company to lead the remainder of the drill. Or at your next fire, have the less senior member of the company on the pipe. I encourage all of you to expand your role and your reach. The important and invaluable idea here is engaging with your peers, sharing your knowledge, and seeing it grow in someone else. You may learn, as others have, that mentoring someone and seeing them succeed can be more rewarding than you doing it yourself. In conclusion, I hope you give thought to what I'm saying and asking of you. In order to have a positive impact regarding the welfare of our men and women in the fire service and addressing our mental wellness, lead by modeling the behaviors you would like to see in others. Be willing to be vulnerable as an individual and mentor the next generation of firefighters. As I began with sharing about my father, I leave you with this about him and me. While I was not always vested in our relationship or fully aware of his struggles throughout his journey, I have made a concerted effort in recent years to reach out to him and be there for him on his journey. So in an effort to stay connected, reach out to your coworker, your friend, your spouse, your son, daughter, mom or dad, or someone here while you're at FDIC, and ask them the simple but yet powerful question: how are you doing? Then, listen. It is really time for straight talk. I would again like to thank Bobby Halton and the FDIC staff for allowing me the time to speak with all of you. Thank you for your time and attention, and let's have a great FDIC experience.
Okay, real quick. Three things real quick. Please sit. Give me a second. Would the Honeywell folks please stand? The Honeywell recipients? All right. God bless you. Thank you. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you could please sit. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States Army. Thank you. We're running a little long. We apologize. Hey, make it to the Technology Summit. It's going to be amazing. We're so thankful that you're here. Don't forget Stop, Drop, Rock, and Roll, the fun run tomorrow night. Tonight, the Grumpy Old Men Tour will be on stage. So please come see us at that. We thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you to Chief Dan DeGryse. Rock Long and all of you. God bless you, and we'll see you down the road. See you later. Thank you.